in a world full of negative people. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is the SharkFarmer Podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever.
And welcome again to SharkFarmer Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey. Today, we're going to go out to Kansas. We're going to talk to Brant Peterson. How you doing, Brant?
Hey, I'm doing real good. How are you?
Good. Now, what part of Kansas are you from?
I'm in the southwest corner. I'm about 15 miles from Colorado and about 35 from Oklahoma.
Does the rest of the state, do they even claim you?
No, not really. They're always here at tax time, though, and they're taking their taxes.
It's funny how that works. Now, are you from there originally?
Yes, I am born and raised here, fifth generation on this farm.
Born and bred there. You know, that says a lot about you, Brant.
Well, actually, we draw straws in our local school and to decide who has to go out of town to find a mate. My wife is from out of town. My brother, however, married a local, so we got to be careful about that gene pool because there's only 2,000 people in the county.
You don't want those superfluous toes and fingers. But you're saying between you and your brother that you have the short straw.
Yeah, well, I don't know who got the worst deal or not deal, but I went outside the county to find a mate. Let's just be careful how we say that.
Very, very good. All right, Brant, you are farming out there, though, right?
Yes, sir. Farm irrigated and dry land, corn, sorghum, wheat, a little bit of alfalfa, using the Ogallala aquifer. And it's desert farming. It's good and it's tough and it's interesting at times.
Okay, the thing about farming, though, is that it's nice to get more information on it, right? And this is going to roll into my ad, which is brought to you this week by Family Farms Group. Now, Brant, I don't know if you've noticed there's this COVID thing going on to where you can't have your regular meetings. You've heard of her?
I've heard of her,
She's been out to Kansas.
She's been here, yeah. We got 15 cases in our county right now. I have had 15.
Katie, bar the door, 50 cases there. All right. Well, without these meetings and seminars and that going on, some of these businesses like Family Farms Group have gone virtual. And that's exactly what they're going to do July 22nd and 23rd. They've got some good speakers on there. They've got Alan Tank. He's an entrepreneur, investor, and he's a former CEO of National Pork Producers Council. You got Eric Snodgrass. You ever seen him talk?
I have not.
He's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of times, with these, I must say weathermen, but they've got him down as a senior atmospheric science with nutrition ag. Okay, all right. He's going to talk about the weather, right? He's one of the good ones. If I get a chance to go watch him, I go watch him. You've got Jason Meadows, the creator of the popular podcast, Ag State of Mind. Now, what the hell? Now, how come no one ever describes my podcast as that? It's always Rob Sharkey, host of SharkFarmer. It's never the popular podcast, SharkFarmer.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jason Meadows is a good dude. I like him. I know him personally.
You're missing the point, Brant. Nobody ever describes my podcast as popular.
We should start a movement about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna start having some virtual meetings and see if we can get a club together and see if we can get that changed for you, Rob.
They've also got on here Chip Dellinger. He's the owner of Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. Now, him I would not listen to, and I'll tell you why. All right, Brant, I went to a very small high school. There was just over 100 kids. My class had 21. Chip was a senior when I was a freshman, right? That alone should be enough to say that you shouldn't listen to him. But here's the thing. Is the thing. His younger sister, Jody, this is it. So we had a very old janitor. I mean, I don't know how old she was, but I think she got her broom from Moses. You know what I'm saying? She's old. And one day, my friend, I won't say who it was Chris Longman, but he hid her cart because he went around with this little cart where you put the broom and all this stuff. He hid it. She had spent all damn day looking for that cart, and she was like giving us a business. Your kids hit my cart, but I didn't mind because honestly, I didn't have to do anything all day because I was looking for the cart. So it became a thing. We would hide her cart all the time. She liked it. We thought it was funny. I'm pretty damn sure it was his younger sister, Jody, that told on us. So for that reason alone, I would not listen to Chip Dellinger.
You just can't let those things go.
I don't know why you would.
You can't. You have got to hold on to that and keep that and make sure that never dies.
Yeah, I know. All right. I shouldn't hold it against Chip, but I'm going to. If you want to go...
I've heard Chip.
Chip is good, but still, remember that whenever you hear him speaking, his sister's the one that ratted out Rob Sharkey. But you want to go to www.familyfarmsgroup.com/SC2020, but you just go to familyfarmsgroup.com. It's right there on the front page. You just register, get all this good information, and you won't get COVID because it's virtual. Unless it travels through the computer some damn how. I don't know. Wear a mask. Watch it and wear a mask.
That's good advice. And probably some gloves.
Would not hurt, Brant. Would not hurt. Okay. It's farmfamiliesgroup.com. Brant Peterson from Kansas. You were from there. You're born. You were bred there.
Yep. Both my parents are locals, yes.
Okay. So give us some background. Who are you?
Well, I'm what you might call small town famous sometimes and small town infamous. So since they've upgraded the weatherman to atmospheric, whatever, I'm going to change my occupation. I'm a production ag specialist.
There you go. How about that?
Yeah,
are you a
specialist.
popular one? You could always put popular in front like that Meadows guy.
Yeah, popular sometimes.
But you were a farm kid, right?
Yeah, there's some sadness and there's some goodness. But I was going to the farm with my dad at a young age, 5 years old, and I'm running around on a go-kart, and I got to drive the pickup back to town to the highway, and then he would drive the rest of the way in. And the first time that I ran a tractor was running a rotary hoe in flood corn. And I tell you what, I was scared to death because we were doing like 8 miles an hour down these corn rows. I'll never forget the terrifying thinking that if I run over some corn, that it's just going to be the end of the world there.
Whoa. First of all, when you said it, I'm thinking, well, that's an easy thing to do to start somebody on, right? Because you're running over the corn on purpose, right? You're trying to get everything broke up. But yes, if you're just starting out and you've got you rolling at 8 miles an hour, that had to be a little panicky.
Yeah. I'm also what you might call vertically challenged. So I wasn't a very big guy to start with. Even with seat all the way forward and all the way down, I still couldn't reach the pedals that well. So,
what tractor
but he was
was
sitting beside me. It was a 4840 with power shift.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was a trick. Then I graduated up pretty quick to an 8650 with a set of sweeps, which you corn belt guys probably don't know what sweeps are.
Oh, we've heard of them.
Heard of them, yeah. The sweeps revolutionized this country out here because before that it was one-ways, and one-ways are what a lot of us like to say, had a lot to do with getting rid of the residue and things like that contribute to the Dust Bowl and all that stuff. And sweeps changed the way we did things today. But anyway, back to my story of who I am. One April day, April 15th, 1987, that was the day that my father died.
Now, how old were you then?
I was 12 years old then.
Oof.
Yeah, I can still remember turning the corner, coming to the house and seeing every car in town is at my house at this point. But so my father succumbed to the tough financial time of the 80s and lost his farm. My father also battled alcoholism and depression. And subsequently, my father took his own life. And so I tell you, Rob, good, bad, or indifferent, my childhood kind of crawled in that casket with him.
I can't imagine. You were 12 years old.
Yeah.
At that age, looking back now, were you able to comprehend what actually happened?
Yes and no. I knew he wasn't coming home anymore, and I knew that he died at his own hand, and I knew that, everybody was telling me it's not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. The crazy thing about kids, they have this unique ability to make everything going on in the house their fault.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I necessarily consciously said, okay, this is my fault and these are the things I'm going to do to correct that. I didn't do that. But somewhere in there I thought, okay, well, that's not my fault, but what happens tomorrow is, or what happens the next day is. And so I was also undiagnosed ADHD. And if you recall, ADHD in the 80s was not a popular diagnosis.
No.
Those were the problem kids, right? And actually, I wasn't diagnosed until I was like 35. And then I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I struggled in school. I really did. And that really killed my self-esteem because I thought everybody struggled to read, except that these other people were just more disciplined and worked harder at it and were better students. I thought everybody struggled to learn this stuff, but they didn't, but they worked harder at it. So I kind of put that on myself, and that really killed my self-esteem. And it wasn't for a long time that I figured out some of the stuff that led to that. But where I found out that I could outperform my peers was on the farm. I was running an 8850 and a twin offset wheelback disc at 13 years old. I was running a combine. I was running a grain cart. I'd drive the grain trucks with the 5 and the 2 with them. I used to drive to driver's ed.
Well, you do know that most people that don't really understand ADHD don't understand what you just said. So can you explain that? Yes, I get the reading part. I can't do it myself. It's always been frustrating. You grow up thinking that you just aren't that smart because it was ingrained into you.
Yeah.
The smart kids are the ones that can read, the ones that can take the test. Those are the smart kids. You can't do that, so you just aren't quite that smart.
That's right.
Was that your mindset?
That was. And, in a small town, image is a lot. The newspaper would put out the A and B honor roll, right? I was on A and B honor roll one time, 4th grade, first semester. I don't know how I pulled that off, but I did. All my cousins are on it. And so my mom, it bothered her a little bit because she knew I was smart. Mm-hmm. She wanted to see me on there. And she thought, man, if he just applies himself, if he just works at it, he'll get there. And that's not the thing. There's certain classes. This is senior year. My mom goes to parent-teacher conference, and she goes to the chemistry teacher. And I'm not doing very well in chemistry class. I'm a high D at that point. She's asking, what can he do to get this up? What do we need to do to correct this so that, he can graduate and you don't have any trouble? Because a D is not going to help him get into college. And that teacher looks at her and goes, he's going to college? I mean, just think about that. Single mom, busting her butt trying to do things, and then the teacher looks at her and says that and just crushed her. She walks out of there and she goes over to, I'll never forget it, Miss Davis's, she taught government, and she waits until it's her turn to go in, and she goes in there and she goes, oh, Sally, I'm so glad you're here. And she's talking to her about this and then the mock trial we had and all this, and she goes, Sally, do you think we could convince Brant to be an attorney? I just really think that that's where he'd be. And so it's so different between teachers. That's not just ADHD, but especially for ADHD. When the teacher could present it in a way that I could pick it up and learn it, it had to be interactive. It couldn't be just, here's the book and here's what you do. Let me know if you have questions. Because all I've got is questions. If it's interactive, then I could take off, and do well. And so you got one guy who's thinking, you sure we don't want to just send him to trade school? And then the very next teacher's like, do you think we could convince him to be an attorney? I know he wants to farm, but do you think we could convince him to be an attorney? It's that crazy. So one thing that I learned, and this is a free trick for anybody out there with a child with ADHD, or if you have it yourself, and I stumbled across this by accident. If you're trying to read and you're finding yourself, trouble staying focused, because I'd read a page and realize I don't even know what that page said.
Yep.
And I'd have to go back and reread it. Chew some gum while you read. Chew gum.
Okay, I'll try it. Is there a theory behind this?
You need something like white noise or some kind of methodical action going on in the background to take away part of the spin and the activity in your group and then in your mind, and then you can focus on something else. A lot of ADHD people sit there and shake their leg a lot, right? They vibrate, they're moving. That's so they can focus. Mm-hmm. And my wife kindly says to me, honey, you're shaking the whole table. You're being disruptive. Please stop that.
You're that guy.
Sometimes it's that. Yes. Yeah, I am that guy. So what I started learning to do, I'm sitting in boardrooms. I've been on the board of directors at a bank, and I'm sitting there and I just have to turn little figure 8 circles on my jeans with my index finger.
Yeah, I get that. I've got to hold something. That's my thing. I've got to hold something. Let me ask you this, all right? Because I'll never forget. I thought I was an idiot most of my life. I really did. And it was just because of the way I was handled in school and your teacher that, thought you would not go to college. So we were watching the Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump. You might have heard of him too. All right, Bret Michaels was on there. And the guy's a train wreck. I mean, from watching him, they would give him these tasks and he would just be all over the place and not getting anything done. And everybody's getting frustrated with him. And then out of nowhere, he comes up with the smartest ideas every damn week. And he ended up winning the thing because he was just outsmarting everybody. But yet, the way he came to the conclusions of these ideas was unlike anybody else. And that's when it finally dawned on me, you know what? Just because my mind doesn't work like everybody else doesn't mean that I'm an idiot, because I have thought of some good ideas throughout my life, stuff that nobody else has thought of. That's the moment. And it was late. It was probably my mid-30s when I actually came to the conclusion that I wasn't a stumbling idiot. When did you come to the conclusion that you're not an idiot?
Well, like I said, I could really do well on the farm. People say, well, what do you do on the farm? And I say, well, I'm damage control. They call me when things are broken, and I show up and I fix it. I learned that I could do that. I could see through those things. I could see how a gearbox on a sprinkler worked. Very easily I could see. And when I say see, I mean I could literally see. Once I like somebody could show me just a picture of it, then I could make that picture move in my head. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could do all those things. Before I even knew that I was really good at that, I was in my 30s. And I think that your 20s, you're just trying to figure something out in your 20s.
Yeah.
And it's not until your 30s till you actually figure something out.
Do you think that's just ADHD, or you think that's everybody?
Well, that's a little bit of everybody, but I think that ADHD, you walk into a forest for 10 years, you're not going to turn around and walk out of a forest in 2 days.
Oh, so listen, look at you. You should write that down.
It is written down. I didn't come up with it. That's been put in front of me before. But if you think about it, Rob, let's say you spent 12 years at school thinking that you were a problem. You learned wrong. You didn't do it well. You weren't capable of doing it. We just got to move you through and get you out of school before, we lose janitor carts again. And then it's going to take time for real life experiences to rewrite that thought in your head.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to when you were 12 years old, because this
12 years old. Yes.
I could not imagine. When you learned that your dad took his own life, were you surprised? Was this something the family saw coming?
I didn't see it coming. Looking back from here at this age with what I know, yeah, it was all there. It was coming.
Okay.
I've had a couple of his friends come up to me and say, I just feel devastated because I feel like I should have known something, or I should have done something back then, but when I know these guys and I know their story, I know they were struggling too.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question in two different ways. I'm going to ask how you viewed it when you were 12, and I'm going to ask how you viewed it now. So when this happened when you were 12 years old, did you think your dad was selfish for doing this?
Man, I tell you what, I struggled so hard. I compartmentalized that so fast and put it away so fast. I just wanted to be normal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be normal. Yeah, I felt like it was a little selfish. I'd often been told, kids are to be seen, not heard. So I kind of knew that, well, there's a whole lot that I don't know yet, and I'll figure out later, and then it'll probably make more sense later. I did. I locked it up quite a bit really early.
Okay. What about now? When you look at what happened with your dad, do you think he's selfish?
I think he was in a lot of pain and didn't see a way out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do feel like it was selfish because my brother and I got robbed of a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because I always thought that way too. It was selfish. And then you hear the other side of it. People that have attempted it and they can see nothing else, but they want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
They can't only see anything but that. So your family, you mentioned a brother and the mom. Any other siblings?
That's it.
Okay. What was the dynamic after that? I mean, how did things change after your dad took his life?
My mom was, of course, reeling, and she was a local florist, and I don't know how she did this. She did the flowers for that service. Oh. And we're all like, how in the hell can you do the flowers for the service? But she did the flowers for the service. It was... We didn't talk about it. She tried to, and I can't speak for him that much on this, but I knew she was hurting. I didn't want her to hurt more by putting my stuff on her too. So that's when I say I locked it up and I shoved it down and I compartmentalized it and I said, okay, try not to get in trouble. Try not to bring attention to yourself. Your mom is really struggling here. And at the same time, like I said, this is the 80s. She had now had to go through bankruptcy on her own. Mm. And that's what really pissed me off about it was he was a participant in making the mess and then jumped out of it, made the mess bigger, and then now he's no longer there to clean it up. Mm-hmm. I never got comfortable with talking about it at young age, not till much later. And that was even slow and, like a toddler trying to, like a baby trying to walk.
Yeah. I can only imagine how tough. I mean, at 12 years old, I don't know. The whole thing was trying to fit in, trying not to get picked on, trying not to be different. And now you've got this on top of it. I just don't know how you handle that at 12 years old. All of you are to be commended just for getting through that, because I can't imagine how hard that is. On the business side of it, was the farm gone then?
Him and my mom made some things happen before the bankruptcy. So he sold what he had bought from his parents back to his parents, which wasn't very much. And they had rented some ground from my maternal grandfather, and he took that back, and they split some things around. I think statute of limitations is up on it also. And I don't know what happened, but I know there was some of that. So the farm that I operate now is predominantly my maternal grandparents' farm. The stuff my dad farmed within that is my brother and I have that now too. But the size and scope of what we do come from my maternal grandparents.
Did you go to college?
I did. It was super important for my mom that I get a degree, because even though my dad had a degree, she felt like he didn't have nothing to fall back on. So she's just like, you never know what's going to happen. You have to have a degree. And I'm like, trade school? No, trade school didn't count. Like,
that was the mindset then. That was it.
Yeah. I did one college visit. I went to junior college just east of Wichita, Kansas on a livestock judging scholarship. I don't know how I got a scholarship because I wasn't very good at it. I was 235 miles from home and going to junior college. So that was 1992 when I graduated high school and I started junior college. I had been working on the farm every summer, every spring break. My granddad also had a small commercial feed yard, and I'd work at the feed yard on Thanksgiving break and Christmas break also. My uncle is helping my granddad. My mom had 4 siblings, and he's the youngest, and he's being groomed to kind of take things over. So 92, 93 winter, I come home that summer, and they had hired a guy that was the foreman on the farm. Him and I didn't seem to get along very good. So I worked it out to where I could get a college credit working at the feed yard that summer. I'm like, shoot, yeah. So I got some college credits for working at the feed yard that summer. So this is 1993, June 27th. I had just turned 19 years old about a week before that. June 27th, my uncle is in a horrific car accident and is killed instantly. And I tell you what, I was one of the last ones there because nobody told me, and I was at the feed yard feeding cattle, and I've seen people leaving the yard, but I didn't know what they were doing. And then when I get up there, I can see the pickup, I can see what's going on, and my grandma and my aunt, his wife, are saying, "Why isn't the ambulance leaving? Why isn't the ambulance leaving?" I remember going up and asked, small town, right? Small town doctor, Dr. Bill. I said, "Hey, Dr. Bill, did Ed make it?" And he goes, "No, he didn't make it." And I said, "Well, somebody's going to have to go back there and tell those 2 women right there because I can't do it." And that was a tough deal. A couple weeks after that, when you bring up college, that brings up this story I had with my granddad and the background that my mom had. So I told my grandpa, I said, if you give me a weekend here, I'll go back to El Dorado and I'll get my stuff and I'll come home and I'll drop out of school and I'll help you here. He goes, "No, I'll be all right. I'll be able to keep it together. No problem. We'll figure it out." And I said, "No, Grandpa, I'm okay doing that." And he says, "Well, no, I'm okay. I'm no problem." And then I said, "I don't think you understand. I'm going to go back and get my stuff. I'm quitting school and I'm going to come back here and help you run the farm." And he goes, "No, I don't think you understand. If you don't have a degree, you don't have a job here." I said, "Well, okay, then I guess about the end of August, I'll be going back to school."
Grandpa put his foot down.
Well, what I know today, you talk about what you knew then and what you know today. What I know today, that was all a bluff. Every bit of it was a bluff. I mean, my uncle had been gone for less than 2 weeks. My mom had already went to my grandpa and said, "I know what Brant's going to do. He's going to say he's going to quit school." She says, "I need your help to make sure he doesn't do that." And he goes, "Well, he's old enough to do his own things now." And she goes, "I know, but I need your help. I really need your help." And so he stepped up and did what she asked. So I graduated from junior college there in El Dorado, Kansas, and I met some wonderful friends I'm still friends with today. Then I go to Kansas State University. in the fall of 94. I want to give you a fun fact to all your listeners out there. Rob,
Yes.
if you get a .7 grade point average at Kansas State University, they will not invite you back.
Okay. Is that what you had?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
So what'd you do?
So then I said, well, Mom, I got an associate's degree, and that is technically a degree.
It's true.
And I'm just going to come home and stay home. And she goes, no, that's not the degree. That's not going to count. And my grandpa goes, nope. And so then I went to a place in the panhandle of Oklahoma that happened to have just what I needed, which was warm body emissions and for waiver of outer state tuition.
Okay. Was this a school for blind children?
No, this is Oklahoma Panhandle State University. When I went to Manhattan, junior college was kind of like high school in class size and structure and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go to Kansas State, all of a sudden, a person with no solid study habits and no ability to sit down and, follow a class outline and to do that stuff. There was classes that I passed, but there's classes that I didn't. I just didn't feel good. I didn't like being a number. I didn't like feeling like I mattered. And when I went down to Goodwell, Oklahoma, it was about the same size as my junior college. And it was 80 miles from home, and I was home every weekend. It was literally probably the cheapest place in America to go to school. It was $900 a semester for books and tuition. They rented you the books. I ended up graduating from there in 97. Made a lot of good friends down there, really enjoyed it.
Okay. All right. So
yes,
you did get a degree. And so did you go?
I got a degree.
Did you go straight back to your grandpa's farm?
Yeah, I did. In about 1995, I met the woman who would be my wife through a friend there. She wasn't attending that school, but we met through a mutual friend and been dating. So graduate in May of 97. I'm married in July of 97. My first son was born in January of 98. Now I'm a father at 24. She was from out of town, right? I had to find out-of-town genetics.
It's a good
She was
idea.
from out of town.
Yeah.
I dropped her off here at the house, and I said, I'll be home at these times, but the rest of the time I'm going to work. And I just went and worked, and because I thought that's what it was all about, just work and work and work and work and work.
Well, now, was she a farm girl?
Her grandparents were. Her parents had been off farm.
Okay. Let me ask you then, because we've seen this a bunch of times too, right? Darn kids, you're out there, you fall in love. She comes back to the farm and everything's supposed to be fine and dandy. And then she realizes that the work hours on a farm, that sometimes creates a very stressful time in the marriage. Did it for you guys?
It did some. She knew what she was getting into. We dated for 2 years. There was no hiding how my family worked. She's one of the first people to say, be careful what you ask God for because he might give it to you in spades. She had asked God for somebody that worked hard and cared about her. And she said, I didn't know that I was asking for that much working. The problem is it didn't quit in the winter because we went right into pasture cattle and right into fertilizing for the next corn. It didn't back off. That's when it got old. When my brother finally come home from school and got there to help me, I was exhausted.
Let's talk about succession, transition, all that stuff, because here you are. Now you've graduated. I hope you took that degree and shoved it up your chemistry teacher's ass. I hope you did that. But you got a degree. You went back to the farm. Is there a place for you? Did your brother want to come back? Is there a place for him? This is the kind of stuff that can tear a family apart.
When I come back, there was a place for me, and I was kind of the foreman. The guy who was the foreman, his last day was the day before I got married, actually.
That's the guy you didn't like?
And so we had a rub. We didn't appreciate each other, I would say.
Very nice way to put it.
Well, no, that's the truth. We didn't appreciate each other. He didn't appreciate what I could do, and I didn't appreciate what he could do.
Gotcha.
That's the truth. Now, what I thought of it back then, no, I didn't like him, and I thought he just needed to go. But when I look at it today, and I'm 46 today, and I look at it today, I didn't appreciate what he brought to the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's what's going to happen. I'm home. I've had a son. My mom is now a grandma. In August of 99, my brother gets married. He's got 1 semester of college left. He's going to come home, and he's going to work at a local bank that the family has interest in. So everything's kind of on track and rolling. And October 15th, 1999, my mom dies in a car accident.
Oh, another car accident.
Another car accident.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, let's stop here for a second, right? I knew that your father had taken his own life. We talked about that before. I could tell that the uncle that you lost, that hurt. I mean, I could tell that you loved him, and that hurt just by the way you talk in the story. You've talked very favorably of your mom all the way through here. I can't imagine when you found this out, how did you handle that?
Oh, well, I remember that night we'd actually tried to go out with some friends, and we went to Ulysses, and we were 22 miles west of the town there, and we're at a little place there eating and having a beer. And one of my good friends, who was actually a college roommate, he's a first responder, and he calls me on my cell phone. Text wasn't quite as predominant then, but he called me. He says, where are you at? And I said, I'm in Ulysses. He says, there's something going on at your guys' office. I'll find out and I'll call you back. And he called me back and he says, I don't know exactly what happened, but you need to get home.
Your history, I can't imagine what's going through your mind.
Oh, yeah, the worst.
Yeah.
The worst. And so I'm on the way home, and I try to call my grandpa. So I call my grandpa's house, and the guy answers the phone, and I said, is Grandpa there? No, he went to town. I said, do you know what's going on? He goes, yeah, your mom passed away. And I'm still 15 miles from town. And all of a sudden I'm in the car, and I've got two of my lifelong friends and my wife with me. And I just sit there, and I didn't say anything to them.
Was it just like that?
It was just like that. And I just sit there, and I'm driving. I just didn't say anything to any of them. I didn't tell them because I was doing all I could do to hold myself together at that moment.
Sure.
And I couldn't fathom anybody else having any emotion about it at all for me right then.
Oh, I can't.
So that was, that was, so if you look here, 87, 93, 99, about every 6 years, something's getting dropped on us. You know, you get a little bit fearful. And I'll tell you the other thing, looking back, didn't grieve or deal with any of this 10% of what needed to be done. None of it. So you've got all of that laying underneath things, and then you're trying to operate this large farm, and you're trying to work together as a family and trying to do everything. So like you said, the succession transition, everything was happening. Life was just getting thrust on us. And we were trying to react the best we could. You know, there was assumptions and there was some talk about plans, but things were never put down in paper. Eventually that stuff's got to be dealt with. You know, irregardless of however you find yourself in a situation, find some time to stop and have those discussions and get some agreements made, or, you know, get some decisions made before you end up 20 years in and you still haven't had those discussions and those conversations. Because now you've got so much emotionally invested and financially invested, you know, those things still aren't dealt with.
Yeah, and we all hear what we want to hear too, right? This is hypothetical. I remember that one time when Mom said, "Oh, well, you're going to farm this or whatever," and she probably said the same thing to a brother. I mean, you're absolutely right. It gets thrown out there all the time. You got to talk about succession planning. You got to have this stuff, I mean, absolutely dialed in, down to every little detail written down, so there are no surprises when something like this happens. Because, I mean, if anything, you're absolutely proof that you don't know when you're going to have to deal with this stuff and have it in place. I'm just adding on what you've already said, but yes, to talk about this stuff, to get it down in writing, as uncomfortable it is, it definitely has to be done.
Mm-hmm. What I've learned from this, a lot of this comes from my wife saying, you know, you really need to get things more detailed if you're going to get in business with somebody. You need to have it laid out. This is how you get in. This is how we operate. And this is how you get out. Because it's all fun and games when we're starting it. We're talking about it later when it's not great. Now we're like, well, you owe me this to get out, or I had this idea, or this is my thing. That's the messy part. If you have it all laid out from the start, anything you can think of, even how mediation's going to go, you know, if he gets to that point, you know, have those things all laid out as you're going into it. The way that I say that my generation can try to present that, the problem I had is the generation above me isn't there. My parents aren't there. My uncle's not there. My mom's other siblings are off farm. Then it's just my grandfather. Well, my grandfather, he kind of got robbed of getting to be a grandfather to some extent too, because he kind of got thrust into being a father figure for us, and he just didn't get to be a grandfather, which, you know, I'm grateful for. And I tell people, my granddad, he's small town famous too. He was 2002 top producer of the year from Top Producer magazine, one of the first ones outside of the Corn Belt. He's been a huge promoter for Southwest Kansas and agriculture. He's done lots and lots of things out here. And my brother and I got a world-class Ivy League education in running a farm in Southwest Kansas. We did.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can see where him and my grandma come from. They've done something that nobody should ever have to do. And that's bury one child and then bury another child. That is a pain that I think we can all agree we hope we never, ever have to experience. And then also subsequently, about the time they were getting comfortable with things and starting to say, okay, here's how the plan's going to go, well, then that person would get plucked out, you know, and then, you know, it was my uncle. And then later it was kind of, my mom was kind of stepping into a CEO type of role in the organization, and then she gets plucked out. And then now you got these 20-year-old kids and this 70-year-old man. We were thrust into it. And the other thing with all that tragedy, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I kind of emotionally quit developing at 12 years old.
That's understandable.
And some of my friends, they always start out a conversation, what's the last thing you want to tell me right now? And so some of the things, the last thing I want to say to the world is, when I get emotionally triggered, sometimes I show up as a 12-year-old, and that's not very cool.
Who the hell asks questions like that? Your friends ask you questions like that?
Yeah, some of them they do. Some of them they do.
Kansas is different. But, I mean, I don't want to take away from the seriousness of that. That is more than understandable. It's such a life-altering event. At 12, such an age, the way your emotions aren't developed yet and everything. I've got to ask, farming is not good right now. Everybody knows that. With the history of your dad and the stress of the farm and what happened, is there worry?
For me, no. I've battled alcoholism. I've been sober since July of 2010. I listened to Nathan Leeper on your podcast, and I've reached out to Nathan Leeper, and him and I are great friends. I've battled depression, and the one thing that has made a different outcome for me, not only up to this point but forever, is I have 3 boys, and I know what it feels like to be one of those boys on the backside of that. There's no way I'm going to do that to them. No way. I'll walk through a whole bunch of other stuff so that I never, ever have to do that to them. And I saw what it did to my mom, and I don't want to do that to my wife either. You know, have I struggled with those thoughts? You're damn right I have. Have I thought that everybody'd be better off if Brant went around here? Yep, I thought that. But then I'm like, damn it, that is crazy talk. That's not real. That's your mind playing games on you. And alone with your own thoughts is a terrible place for an addict to be.
Yeah.
Terrible.
1987, when your dad took his life, and now, I know in 87, it was the suck it up buttercup attitude. I'm the same age as you, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
You didn't talk about feelings. The movie Country was taboo because you didn't even talk about it, right?
Right.
I mean, you talked about going through alcoholism and these thoughts and that. Has it changed? Was it easier to get through some of these things now than maybe when your dad was going through them, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it is now because there's so many more resources and it's so much more of a discussion. So even back then, alcoholism wasn't viewed the way it's viewed today.
Yeah.
It's viewed very different. And you want to even talk about worse, go clear back to the 30s, when AA was developed, what the public perception of it was. The crazy thing was there was another addiction that was socially acceptable, and that was called workaholism.
Yeah.
That was socially acceptable.
It was
right?
It was looked favorably on.
Yes. That was the crazy thing. There's so many people still today with all the knowledge we have, everybody's medicating somehow. Now, are you doing it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way? And I tell you what, one of the counselors that I've had, he's done a lot of good for me over the years, but one of the things he said to me was, when thinking about taking a drink, or you're thinking about eating another piece of chocolate cake, or whatever your drug of choice is, what healthy need are you trying to get met in an unhealthy way?
Yeah. I mean, you brought up Nathan Leeper. He made me look at alcoholism in a way that I never did before. And here you are talking about dealing with losses that you had in the stress on the farm. You know, Nathan had that platform, and he just put it out there, and he tried to help anybody that was struggling. You know, people are listening to this, and I mean, farming is not fun right now. It just sucks. Margins are slim, and if you didn't have money build up, things are not looking good. What do you want to tell people that are out there that are feeling like there's really no way out? Pressures of losing multi-generational farms, whatever pressure there is of losing the farm. What advice would you give people out there that are struggling with that?
You know, I heard McDaniel say it on a podcast once about the pioneers who set out and settled this land 5 generations ago for me. They left something that wasn't working to come here. And if this ain't working today for me, they might be the first ones to say, hey, you need to go do something else because this ain't working. And that mantra of you have to be the one, you talk about this, it all rests on you. No, it doesn't. That's just our own mind, and that's just made up what society thinks. And you know what? Screw society. Screw society. They don't have to lay their head on my pillow and try to sleep at night. Yeah, you're right. It is hard right now. There's a whole lot of freaking challenges going on. It is. If this don't work, dude, find somebody to talk to and let's figure out what will work. Because you have to be grateful for things. You tell me this, Rob, does this sound like the way you were taught? You are taught to look for problems when you go out and go across the farm.
Oh, yeah.
We're constantly looking for problems. People wonder why farmers are so damn negative. Well, hell, it's ingrained in us from the start. You're looking for problems. This isn't right, correct it. And if everything's right, go look again because everything can't be right.
Yeah, your eyes will always go to the worst part of the field. Yes, you will forget the 99% of the field that looks great, and you'll focus on the 1% that the damn little 13-line ground squirrels have eaten the seeds from. That's what I do anyway.
Yeah, it is so easy to get wrapped up in that negative. We are trained to look for those things. There is always things to be grateful for. Sometimes they're really, really hard to see, and sometimes you need to call a friend and say, listen, dude, I need to find something to be grateful for right now because I can't see anything. In the middle of all this COVID, in the middle of everything going on, and we're in a D4 drought, I get an email the Wednesday before Memorial Day that said the seed company that I sell for, Fontenelle Hybrids, was pulling out of Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Texas. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? They're just gone? Yeah, they're just gone. They were a regional brand within Montana-Bayer. They're based in Nebraska. St. Louis or Montana-Bayer had made the choice that they were pulling out of Kansas and going up there. So I've been selling seed for them for 10 years. All the seed on my farm is Fontenelle seed. Next year, I don't have access to Fontenelle seed. And not only that, what am I going to tell all my customers? You know, my mind just takes off and all the negative and all the, you know, I'm just so mad. And I thought, I need to positively reframe this. I mean, I called myself out on it pretty quick. And I was making mile long runs in the corn planter, so I had lots of time to think.
Well, first of all, what does that mean? Positive reframe? Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to your 13 rows. We can sit here and look at these 13 rows, or we can say, you know what? There is 99% of this field that looks outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can focus on the 1%. Even if it's the other way around. If 99% of the field and 1% of the field looks good, well, you know, I get a chance to try something different now. There's something everywhere that you can positively reframe your situation. And so I am a Christian. I am a man that believes, and I'm a man that believes that God gave us free will and that we are going to have challenges put before us. It's not going to be easy, and that we're going to have choices to make. The saying that, when one door closes, another one opens. Well, it's pretty hard to see the door that's open down the hall on the other side when you're pounding on the door that just closed.
Mm-hmm.
And so positive reframing was like, okay, you know what? 10 years ago, I had never sold a bag of seed, and now I have a customer list and sold all this seed. 10 years ago, I didn't have this experience, and I hadn't met all these people that I've met through what this has brought before me, and the opportunities it put before me, and the people I've got to meet, and the knowledge that I've gained, and the experiences I've had. And I said, you know what? I guess I'm going to find out what free agency feels like.
Jeez.
Because I'm a free agent right now. I just got cut. I'm out. One of the things that I was so fearful of, when I can remember this clear back from when I first started selling seed, if I ever change brands, how am I going to go and face, my customers when I've been saying, hey, this is the best Kool-Aid ever, and now I want to give you some different Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Which every farmer knows it. I mean, we've all done this, right? You stay with a dealer. We all know that every company out there has good and bad hybrids. We all know it.
Yep. When the regional brand lead, he called me, and he was very timid. He's like, boy, Brant's going to give me the business. And I said, man, are you doing okay? That's had to be a rough day telling everybody that they've, lost their dealership. And he's like, well, yeah, it's been pretty tough. And I said, I know that this isn't your decision and this isn't what you wanted, but this is what's being handed down. I said, I'm really grateful for the time we had together and what we've got to do. And this isn't goodbye. This is see you later. And I mean, he said, out of every phone call I made, that was the only phone call that was in that mind frame.
Yeah, which he probably needed at the time.
Yeah, I think he sure did need it. And since then, I've just signed a deal. I'm going to be selling Channel Seed. So it's same parent company, same products, and it's going to be going forward. So I get a chance to do something different. I'm excited about it, and then we'll see how it goes forward.
Brant, you've been extremely honest. The only thing that I fear is people have the same mindset as me sometimes where, like, I shouldn't complain. I shouldn't let things bother me because, I mean, listen to Brant's story. Look at all the stuff he's had to go through. That's nothing like that what I've gone through. So I can't have depression. I can't have anxiety. That's just not happening because if he can make it, I can make it. My co-host of the What the Farm, Leslie Kelly, says this so well. She says there's people that drowned in the ocean every year. There's people that drowned in a 5-gallon bucket every year. It doesn't matter the size of the problem or the scope of the problems. I mean, it still can be very harmful to you. So don't look at Brant's story and think that you have to go through, as bad of things that he's gone through to struggle with depression or anxiety. So if you're having troubles, definitely seek help. It's not a taboo. It's not saying you aren't brave or you're not strong. Just talking to somebody, maybe getting some help. I don't know, Brant, you got any more advice for people that are struggling?
If you reach out to people, generally you're going to find out pretty quick which people you can trust and which people you can't. And there are going to be people really close, which everybody's close nowadays, but there are going to be people that are really close that care about you, that are willing to listen to you. And there's going to be people far away that will take a call and listen to you and help you. It is easier to stay within the ag community. I agree with that because we kind of get some of the background that goes with all of it that we, it's kind of our card that we get when we come in. I've got the card, so I understand this pressure of the generational, and I understand this pressure of the weather, and it's too wet or it's too dry or it's both. And I understand that, Grandpa wants to do it this way and you want to do it different. So I understand all those things coming in. So you don't have to lay all that groundwork to somebody. So some of that stuff is so nice to stay within somebody in agriculture. Jason Meadows would be a good place to find some resources. He could point you in some directions.
With his popular podcast.
With his popular podcast, yeah. I love that.
Brant, it's brave to open up like this. It is. And every time someone does it, I think it's very brave because there's people out there that obviously need to hear it. And with the ag economy now, And with COVID and all the stuff that the wonderful 2020 has blessed us with this year, there are certain people out there that definitely are struggling and definitely need a chance to get some help. So thank you for being so honest.
That's exactly why I did it, because I wanted people to know that they're not the only ones who have challenges. And you're right. Don't compare what you have to me, because I tell you what, I've heard other guys' stories of challenges that they've had, and I thought mine didn't compare to theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And when it all comes down to it, we're all just people, and we all have feelings, and we all get hurt. And we all deal with them differently, and most of us don't deal with them effectively and don't give them the light that they need.
All right, Brant, if people want to talk to you, where are you at on social media?
At Winsome Farms on Twitter. We have a Facebook page, Winsome Farms and Winsome Ag Services. I think we have a webpage, winsomefarmsks.com.
Okay, and Winsome is Winsome. So Winsome. Winsome Farms with an S. You win some, you lose some, huh?
You lose some. There you go. That's it.
Is that really it? It's not a family name?
No, that's it.
That's clever.
I have to give that credit to my wife also. Anybody traveling through here, or if you look at the pictures on Facebook or on our webpage and you think that we have a gorgeous looking place, my wife has all the color coordinating and all the decorating stuff. I am structure and flow, and she is design and decoration.
Yeah, it was been obvious that you married up.
Yeah, I did.
Well, Brant, again, thank you for sharing your story. It takes a lot of courage to do that, so I really, really appreciate that. Brant Peterson, thank you very much. And everybody else, we hope you catch us next week.
And thank you for listening to the SharkFarmer Podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for SharkFarmer to follow me on Twitter. Later.